Great. Hello,
Hi.
Beth.
Hi, very nice to be chatting finally.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an absolute pleasure to have you on. We're at Protocolberg, and you and I were interacting for a few weeks now
Yeah.
for Funding the Commons, which is the
Yeah.
event that ZKAV Club hosted our first real version of this
Yeah.
at Funding the Commons. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys. I think everyone was so so excited to have the opportunity for this kind of interactive storytelling. And it was really cool to have this component of DWeb as well as their unconference programming and their more structured workshops, and to think about how all of those different aspects weave together for creating community around these different components of decentralized web. So that's super nice.
Yeah, we're all about community. Like the
Yeah.
ZKAV Club and DWeb, and it seems Funding the Commons is also it's a very diverse event. It was really unique. I think
Awesome.
from the design of the event, the curation of the event, and like the different activations, I guess you call them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your role as the designer and curator of events like this.
So I'm program director at Funding the Commons specifically, and what that has meant is defining what the program curation looks like for the specific different events and experiences we have, and also our larger program of what are the kind of values that we're highlighting, the narratives that we are bringing forward, and who we are partnering with in each city. So over the past 2 years that I've been working there, then we've had two conferences in Berlin, two in San Francisco, one in Bangkok, one in Tokyo, and then I also curated pop up inside of Edge Esmeralda and Crecimiento. And I feel like I might be forgetting one. There was Taiwan, which I was not involved with. But yeah, so throughout all of those, thinking about how to work with local partners to bring in and activate their community in their very specific context. So in Tokyo, for example, there's the Plurality Institute folks, and they have a really specific and beautiful way that they're thinking about how their themes around platforming plurality and kind of pushing that forward with Audrey Tang and Glenn Vile, and also related other Japanese scholars and researchers. So leaning a lot on that context, which ends up being very different than, a kind of accelerationist view in San Francisco, and the Berlin kind of more cypherpunk and connection to arts and activism and stuff like that here. So this year our theme has been infrastructures of resilience, and this one is super meaningful to me. Like I thought of that angle because we are having our first conference this year, the San Francisco one at Internet Archive, and that's such a special place for understanding how we preserve and make persistent like data, to be used for external purposes and also for recording and um, stewarding, all of the stories and histories that come in there. So, it was really special to then bring that to my current town in Berlin. So,
Super cool. All of these events that you just mentioned, that all happened within 2 year period.
and most of those were actually even within the past year and a half. So, yeah,
Wow.
it's been a lot of a lot of different events. And each of those, tying into a strategy about what different organizations we want to be fostering partnerships with, and what communities we want to make sure that we're involving their voice and perspective. So,
Very cool.
um,
It's a lot of work, a lot of coordination between different
definitely.
groups.
Yeah.
And speaking of different groups, this last event was sort of curated by several different groups,
Yeah.
right? Can you explain what Funding the Commons at Berlin Blockchain Week was like for as from your perspective, and so the folks at home that are
Oh, yeah.
watching this can kind of understand?
Yeah. Well, so this one was super interesting because I had the mandate that I was super excited about, because that's one that I am always wanting to work toward, of like focusing on participatory programming. So we didn't have any formal keynotes, we didn't have any auditorium. It was all workshops, roundtables, lightning talks, and unconference space, and I guess also art activations and this art exhibit. So to make that happen, then we first collaborated with Web3 Privacy, who are having their hackathon in the same space starting this afternoon, I guess. And for them, we were like, we have super overlapping communities. We have very aligned values. We want to see how we can bring those communities together for the purpose of grounding the ideas that we want to be putting forward in the hackathon in the context and connection point of the forum. So that was the first that we brought in. My partner, Josh Davila, is the founder of Bread Cooperative, and they were also organizing an event. And I was like, why don't combine it with our event? You can have your own area. And then with DWeb, I always knew that I wanted to collaborate with you guys because DWeb Camp is also, a close ally of us. And yeah, we had such a special experience working with Internet Archive and want to keep maintaining that partnership and see what that collaboration looks like as both of our organizations adapt and over the next years. And then finally, Decoland, close friends of us who are also thinking through the systems design lens. Like one of my kind of guiding missions is how do you establish the commons as a complex system viewpoint of thinking about what the commons part of funding the commons means. And so Katya, the founder of Decoland, super aligned on that. And so we brought in that context for designing civic infrastructures. And then finally, I got to collaborate with one of my favorite longtime collaborators on research and on art curation, Sina Gustafsson, also from Department of Decentralization. Folks organizing this event as well, to bring in some of our favorite artists to have an art exhibit there, and also to bring their research in, beyond just being siloed in this kind of art exhibit room to actually talking about their research in roundtables and, bringing those topics into a wider conversation. So
Very cool. Very complex.
So sorry for rambling, but there were many, many parts of it. So,
yeah, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Like I was really
Definitely.
impressed because like as one of the DWeb node leads, I was involved in the DWeb pop-up, and watching how you put all this together was just like mind-blowing to me. It was really
Awesome.
impressive.
That means so much. And you guys were awesome with like jumping in and adapting, and it was super cool.
Yeah, in the decentralized web, there's a lot of flexibility, and this ad hoc, it has a very much like ad hoc network. We're big into mesh networks, and I think that the people kind of implement that sort of mentality into the way that we do things as well.
Totally. Yeah. Like for me, curating an event is like bringing a relational graph to life in physical space. And, whenever it's always interesting because people are always like, can AI replace your job? Or I'm asking myself, what parts of my job can be automated? And it's a interesting, wider question of how do you capture a relational graph and, seeing, like knowing all these different parts from many years of context in Web3, and then seeing, these people complement each other in this way. And seeing how y'all brought in some different areas of folks that fit into the wider vision was also very cool with like IPFS folks, etc. So
speaking of IPFS, where did Funding the Commons come from?
So we were first incubated in Protocol Labs as the network goods section of Protocol Labs, I guess. So at that time, my understanding, this predates me joining, but my understanding of that legacy was that we had this idea of tools like IPFS and Filecoin and our other storage offerings, et cetera, as being understood as not just different tool suites, but as network goods. So these infrastructural rails on which decentralized and open source technologies can be built. And so Funding the Commons started as a way to make these topics super tacit and tangible and build a community of people getting excited about these stuff. And similarly, Sustainable Blockchain Summit also happened back during that time. And with Funding the Commons, we kind of combined both of those into this wider purpose that we also have, expanded and evolved from just being about, kind of technical crypto public goods, network goods, to this idea of what does public goods, bridging digital and physical spaces look like as a whole.
It's really cool. Like, you're talking about a lot of different sort of system thinkers that are
Totally.
now applying they usually exist or work in a technical environment, like coming from
Yeah,
Silicon Valley sort of mindset and applying that to the human layer, applying that to
definitely.
how societies or small cultures, subcultures can organize and like really like feel empowered and empower each other and help support each other.
Definitely.
Cool.
And, one thing I think is super interesting is, we are always bouncing between this critiques of like, are you bringing in enough explicit discussion of Ostrom's principles and then trying to adapt to, this very specific definition of public goods or very specific definition of commons, but continually needing to showcase that in a fresh way and in a way that is inclusive. Yeah.
Can you explain Ostrom's principles to me?
Let's see. This is an example of the sort of thing that I always blank on. I would say that, I mean, my high level overview understanding is that she, has laid out, I think it's 8 principles of like, what does sharing resources for a common good look like in terms of, defining, what is kind of the shared goal and mission and way of, uh allocating resources in a way that is not extractive. I would need to review exactly what those are, but for me it has been kind of a guiding principle in general of thinking like, what does the commons mean in terms of both like organizational design type of infrastructures like cooperatives or DAOs or government organizations or the public sector. Like there's a lot of different ways that building together through the commons and for the commons expresses itself. And so exploring all of those through the wider lens, I think, has been really valuable for us.
That's really cool. It's fascinating, actually, and it's something I need to look into more because like I haven't heard of Ostrom's principles, and it seems to apply to what we're doing with the ZKAV Club. Like,
Definitely.
we have this sort of grassroots approach to media, which is or to content creation, community content creation. It's
Yeah,
something that's new, and most people don't like think about media production in that way.
definitely.
So thinking about what we're doing with this recording station as a common good, and everyone's a content creator now. We all have these
Yeah.
devices that can record. So it's definitely something I want to look into more. And it sounds like you've just like embodied the knowledge. And that's like,
I hope so. And yeah, I would really recommend reading Michael Zargham's work on from MetaGov and from Block Science and other folks that are working with him on applying, those principles in a way from the level of protocol design and mechanism design up through the social layer. And they will paraphrase it much more elegantly than me. But yeah.
super cool. What's the next thing for funding the commons?
So I know we have the builder residency coming up in Argentina and a continued focus on how can we empower builders to make protocols, mechanisms, tools that are able to have a real world impact in a really tangible way. So I think that will be an exciting next step for defining and clarifying what infrastructures of resilience looks like. There's also something I want to ask you, which is one of the things that was the most exciting for me in this curation was having the opportunity to finally bring my love for world building and speculative fictions into design workshops, and and also being able to have a whole kind of content block around archiving and archiving practices as like cultural memory and collective memory preservation and stewardship and co-creation. And I know that you guys have been thinking about that a lot, and also we're working specifically with some of these people creating world building artifacts. I was wondering, I don't know if that was you or if someone else, because I was like down monitoring my area during the conference, but I would love to hear how that ended up going if if it ended up happening as was envisioned.
Yeah, so we did speak with Fotis, who was involved with that, who
Awesome.
was
They're
here
super cool.
yesterday talking with us.
Nice.
I don't think that they were talking specifically about that because like we didn't have time to do the follow-up workshop that was planned after the speculative fiction workshop.
Yeah.
But it's
Oh
fascinating
no.
topic, and
Yeah.
I hope to meet with them again and we can do this again. Like
Cool.
I hope to be at future events with this recording station and be
Nice.
able to really help the communities document themselves because
Yeah.
it's this collective storytelling you're talking about, the collective experience. Like so
Yeah.
often at these events, all that gets recorded or live streamed is the content that's on stage, and it's very
Yeah.
much selected by the higher ups.
Yeah.
And there's to me the most interesting thing about conferences and things is what happens behind the scenes in the hallways, the
Definitely.
hallway track,
Yeah.
and those dialogues and these conversations, the ideas, are all a part of not only the event but also the community. And
Definitely.
it's like a moving story, so evolving.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure to be able to be a part of funding the commons and experiment
Totally.
with this kind of thing. Like you were also open to what we were doing, and it
Um,
was really great to just like to talk to different people like Fotis and to be able to talk to anyone that was around and hear their story, hear their perspective, not just what they're working on, but actually like who are they and what's going on with their lives.
well, since we are both in Berlin, maybe there could be some activations around, yeah, DWeb community, looking into that, and yeah, storytelling as a method of artifact capture. I think is a super cool one to keep exploring.
Definitely,
So
absolutely. The DWeb community is big on storytelling, and we actually did sort of prototypes of this recording station at the DWeb camp last year in San Francisco, and had just one prompt of like migration stories. And so we
yeah,
captured, well, recorded. I don't like this captured word, but
yeah,
we recorded and archived different people's stories, and they got very personal. And
yeah,
it was very there was a lot of vulnerability that you
yeah.
don't see in if from this community in like the stage presentations and the panels. Everyone's always very like proper and they have their talking points and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I was very sad to miss the DWeb camp and specifically that yeah, explorations around that storyline because I think yeah, it's such a like uh pervasive subplot in our community having stories of migration. Like one thing that was super cool at Funding the Commons was our artist Stefan Zimmerly that had this area set up that he called the Studiolo of Exile, where he built this wooden structure that was calling to Studiolo, which I guess was a like medieval kind of place of transcendence and learning in the church during that time, where it's like this very small room where you go into like, you know, Hildegard of Bingen or some of these people that were having like transcendental communications with the divine, immersing themselves in, you know, their internal world because of the constraints of being in this container. And so building one of these structures, then bringing folks in to interview them for 2 hours who had a story of being in a place of exile or being from somewhere that they felt they could not return to. And several of our organizing team members ended up sharing those stories. And I was telling him, like, everyone who's involved with organizing this conference, including myself, including you, I guess, are, you know, immigrants who came here from another place. Like, you know, my story is not very interesting to share, you know, for that context compared to somebody that, you know, has like come as a refugee or something, but like, you know, we all have a story of like a place that we cannot go back to. And, you know, especially coming from an American context and making the very intentional decision to ground in Europe, like it was super meaningful to, yeah, to have these memories captured in that place. And there was a really cool juxtaposition between, you know, capturing these stories in a visual format and pictures versus you guys that are capturing these stories as auditory artifacts. And I think in general, um, exploring what it means to have a collective practice around capturing and preserving memory, then yeah, it's super important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Like when you mentioned the
Um,
Internet Archive, and DWeb is also connected to Internet Archive very closely. There's
uh,
the whole purpose is to preserve these artifacts, and they're doing
Yeah.
an amazing job of it. But it's still a centralized resource, and
Yeah.
they still, of course, there's constantly more stories to tell, so we can keep
Definitely.
adding to it and adding to this collective archive.
Yeah.
The artist that created Stephen, what was his last name?
Stephen Zimmerly.
Stephen Zimmerly. That was a really cool exhibit. I didn't have a chance to be a part
Yeah.
of it, but also like it's just so touching and personal.
Totally.
And it's something that I realized when listening to people's migration stories is that most people migrate because of trauma.
Yeah.
And like you said, like we chose to move here voluntarily from the US to
Yeah.
Berlin of all places. It's like that's more of like a privilege,
Yeah.
as opposed to the majority of people who migrate do it because
Exactly.
their home was destroyed or they were kicked out or
Yeah.
worse. So it's really cool that you had that opportunity to connect to with
Definitely.
Stefan. And I'm curious how these connections happen. Like you had these different groups that were curating and these artists. Is it like, are you personally reaching out to them, or
Um,
how does that work on the back end?
I mean, I was super lucky with this conference because I was able to have, yeah, a high degree of kind of choosing what was going to happen. And so there, for this one, I didn't receive any speaker applications. I kind of intentionally reached out to everybody for these artists, except Stefan, who connected with Kim, our head of growth at Change Now conference in Paris. And I think he was doing another activation that was similar to that. And she was like, this is too perfect for, I mean, she, yeah, brought him to me and was like, you are obsessed with this idea of like, and archiving as collective memory. This guy is doing such incredibly beautiful work on that. But for the other artist, two of two of the different groups across Lucid and the Sphere are good friends and collaborators across various vectors. So it was really awesome to have them come in and tell their stories. And Cesar, someone whose work that has been curated by Stina, my co-curator before, and was really impressed with his work and his like super articulate way of thinking about existential risk as related to AI and a geospatial sensing, and being able to give him the opportunity to lead roundtables and participate in roundtables about this topics while showing the visual component of his research around that was awesome. So yeah, this was a super special exhibit to me of like people that I see their work in conversation with each other, and being able to have them like literally placed in a physical proximity was super cool.
Yeah, totally. Like I wish that we could have talked to more of these folks, because like I said, we're doing this for the first time, and a lot of people don't really
Yeah.
understand what we're trying to do. Or if people who are attending these conferences like Protocolberg, they walk up and they see all these cameras, they see a studio set up, and they think it's not for them.
Oh yeah.
They think it's like some professional thing, and you have to be asked, you have to be invited.
Unlike
So
me, who loves attention, is like, oh, perfect. Maybe I should start talking to you and sit there.
yeah, no, and
So,
it's fantastic. I'm really glad that you did, because
so
we didn't we talked a lot
yeah,
before and leading up to funding the
yeah,
commons, but we didn't have the opportunity to talk much during the event
yeah,
because you were really busy.
yeah. And talking before, it's about things like, how do you want to couch versus like, what is your like intrinsic motivation as a human? So, yeah, I really look forward to hopefully having more opportunities to get to know each other on that level and collaborate on some cool stuff. So,
Absolutely. Like I really
yeah.
look forward to it. And so now I have to ask you, what is your intrinsic motivation in doing what you do?
I think for me, like I feel like my calling and the space is for like understanding how to bring out what is really special about all of these different folks that I know, and make the communications with each other. Like, which someone who is probably our mutual friend, Tony Lai, has like super involved in DWeb camp and stuff. Like always characterizes me as doing community weaving, which, is on the hippie spectrum of maybe how I would like self-identify, but I would say it is an accurate way for thinking about what is motivating for me. Like there are certain topics that I feel like should be talked about more explicitly, such as the roundtable that I moderated on how DIY HRT for the trans community is liberatory harm reduction, as well as a vital real world use case for privacy preserving infrastructures. And There is not often space to talk about stuff like that, or it's viewed as too radical, or it's viewed as, are viewed by the people that should be offering their perspectives as like, oh, why would I go to a crypto conference and talk about that? So making space for these disparate groups to feel safe and comfortable to see how their incentives align and make the kind of, liminal space in which that happens. So, super special to have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it is. Funding the Commons was very different than a lot of crypto events. I think that I've been to a lot of crypto events, and kind of the typical thing is much more like product pitches, startups.
Yeah.
Very like they either get very technical, like Protocol Berg is doing a great job of this as well, of not shilling and really curating on
Yeah.
on that sort of level. And there are plenty of global crypto conferences that are just about like booths and sponsors and all
Yeah.
of this. The Bread Cube was an interesting space, and it was packed. It was always full, and
Totally.
the programming was really interesting. Can
Awesome.
you tell us more about the Breadcoin
Well,
space?
the other person who was going to speak with us that is sitting there would be the person if he would come and speak about Bread Cube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, please. Fantastic. I didn't realize that.
So yeah.
Can we get this other microphone turned on, please? And the receiver as well.
So this is my partner Josh, and also our my partner in curating the Bread Cube. So basically, he had been curating a different conference that would have been happening the next weekend, and then we're like, we're inviting all of our same friends to the conferences. What if they were, part of the same conference? But I think he had a more intelligent question.
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, good.
Excellent. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And to have you on
course.
in the recording station. Tell me a little bit about like what your role is, what your project is, and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Josh Davila. I'm also known as the Blockchain Socialist, is my blog and podcast that I have. And I am also the co-founder of a project called Bread Cooperative, where we build applications using crypto from a post-capitalist lens. So trying to think about the use of the technology in a way that kind of extends beyond kind of the usual things that we all know crypto to be often used for in terms of speculation and whatever else. And yeah, so we did a bit of curation, me and a few others on the team did some curation for the Bread Cube, which is one of the spaces in Funding the Commons, where we tried to bring many of our friends that we know that are working on very interesting things, very like related things to the stuff that we're building, and yeah, have in-person conversations and presentations about these things, these very niche interests that often are difficult to find on the internet.
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I would ask you something. I would ask you. So my favorite thing to watch him organizing, I guess, from it was the designing political economies, like programming section. Like maybe you can share about that as an example of cool experiments that you guys were doing.
Yeah, sure. So the one of the I guess themes within our theme, the larger theme was adaptive resilience, and inside of that we had one block specifically focused on political economy and blockchains. And so starting from the political economy, the problem that you often have when you try to talk about political economy is that besides it being like a not so normal like field of study for a lot of people, if you don't necessarily know that there is like, they know maybe you can study politics and you can study economics, but political economy is kind of sometimes overlooked. So trying to so we kind of tried to make programming that would help break down some of the elements around political economy. And the way that we did it, in part, is through this workshop that was facilitated by my friend Nick Hood, looking at political economy first as a design space. So oftentimes when talking about political economy, things can get really charged or ideological, where if you say capitalism, communism, socialism, whatever, people will have a potential emotional reaction to those words, or like they will have their um, have preconceived notions about what those things are and what they mean. And the field of political economy is much more diverse and much more complex than simply saying capitalism or socialism, right? Like the free market or the states. Um, it is a very complex system of economic and political relationships that all affect each other in at different layers of the kind of stack that creates our economy and produces, the relationships that we have with each other, whether that be uh, facilitated via the market or facilitated via the state bureaucracy. And so by thinking about, by using kind of design thinking around political economy, we basically kind of broke apart what are the different pieces of a political economy and what makes up. So we had 5 different variables that make up a political economy. I might not be remember right now off the top of my head the 5 variables, but it was things like the ownership structure. So whether things are generally private owned, publicly owned, state owned, cooperatively through a commons. How are organizations predominantly owned? And this under capitalism, generally things are privately owned, but there's often a mix of public and state owned things as well. And then another one is like the distribution mechanism. So what is the way in which we distribute resources amongst each other? Is it done via a market? Is it done like via some need-based system in which we determine who needs the most? Do we simply do an equal distribution of things all the time? There were 2 more I don't remember at the top of my head, and then the last one was integration into the global economy. So like, how much does your political economy relate to others in the world? And so by breaking it apart, we were able to like provide different options for each variables, and we could kind of mix and match where um, or like what was inside those variables. So we could kind of determine more or less what does like a neoliberal political economy, what does Soviet communism look like. We can kind of like put down at each of these variables what they generally are, and then begin to play around with it, where we switch out some things, where like, what if we had Soviet communism, but we take out the central planning and we put in, uh, free markets or whatever, and and then talk through what are the types of contradictions that go along with the specific type of the other variable was decision making authority. So like, how does that relate to each other? What kind of contradictions does that produce? Um, so yeah, anyways, it was a really nice exercise, and like something that I think we want to build on a little bit more. And then so Nick had done a workshop on that. He also gave a lightning talk kind of explaining the whole thing as well in a different space, in our main space. And then we had a panel or a roundtable with Ethan Frey, who was one of the first employees at Cosmos, now CTO of Layer, Trent Van Epps from Protocol Guild in the EF, and Connor Cnode from Celestia, to talk about their experience of building blockchains within a particular political economy, or like by facilitating, or like by making a blockchain that facilitates a particular political economy while being inside the one that we are like currently existing, and talking about where are the centers of power within like a blockchain ecosystem. Is it with token holders? Is it with the core developers? Is it with validators? So having a discussion about this in the context of that framework as well. And then we ended it with a workshop where I had people discursively build a blockchain after receiving a random political economy. So they would just kind of pull from the stack of we had like five for the 5 variables, 5 different pieces of paper. You get one of each. And then they would receive some random political economy, and they need to determine what would a blockchain be good for in this political economy. So like with this underlying kind of thesis for me is that the reason why we see so many financialized use cases of blockchains is because the political economy we already live in is already financialized. So like it's very easy to slot in another gambling app because they're already kind of gambling even without crypto. If you when you know with kind of continued privatization of a lot of public services, I would argue we are building in a context in which financialization is like idealized in some way. But the question is like, what would a blockchain be used for? What would it be good for in like Soviet communism? Like, I don't think that probably if the Soviet Union still existed, they probably wouldn't be using blockchains for the same thing that it's being used for now, right? So it's trying to think about that, like the technology that we bring about, that we build, exists within a pre-existing system, and it's going to heavily influence what it does and what it's used for. It's kind of the general type of thing I was trying to get at with that programming. Yeah.
It's really cool. How does this connect to Bread Cooperative? Like, tell me about Bread Cooperative.
So in Bread Cooperative, like I said, we're building applications from a post-capitalist lens. So trying to think beyond the types of relationship that capital facilitates between people, between like, employee and employer, for example, like the wage labor relationship, the fact that few people own most companies and most capital in the world. This is the purpose of capitalism, is to accumulate wealth at the top. That is kind of its design on purpose. There's this, assumption that people who have a lot of money deserved it. There's some sort of merit by having a lot of money, and therefore they're probably smarter than the rest of us because they earned a lot of money. And so like we just like heavily question that assumption as not being like actual map of reality, although that is the ideological map that is imposed on us via capital. And also, this is what is very dominant in the crypto space. And it's been successful in part because we already live under capitalism. Like DeFi applications, they need whales to come and like provide liquidity to their applications for it to like be successful. Like the name of the game in DeFi is liquidity. And so it's not like democracy. Like democracy is not the name of the game like in a DeFi application. And so the things that we're interested in is more so about how do we make economics more democratic, right? That's kind of, for me at least, that's what like the type of post-capitalism that I would like to go to. There's this underlying assumption, of course, as well, that many capitalist institutions are kind of faltering at the moment, and something new needs to be born, is trying to be born. And so by discussing political economy as a design space, it allows us to kind of like look at the problem as a whole, to say that like there's no such thing as a perfect system. That simply does not exist. You simply have choices to be made within certain boundaries that some you can control, some you cannot. And to think about, for this system that we're trying to produce, who are the actors that we're trying to have benefit the most? Like, who is that and why? And how do we embed that into a technological system by understanding what the political economy is? And so that's how we also like think about building applications ourselves.
Nice. This sounds like there's a lot of connection and overlap to DWeb, we were talking about earlier. Like DWeb has these 5 principles. I also don't remember all of them. But ownership, like humans over platforms, people over platforms, like look at who actually owns the technology or the applications that we're using. And then like the distribution of resources and keeping that fair. So I definitely see the overlaps and why we were all at funding the commons. And were your Bread Cube talks recorded? Or
Only some of them.
Okay.
Only some of the lightning talks. That's
okay. because I missed them because I was over doing the recording station. So it'd be cool to catch those for sure.
We'll post them on YouTube.
Okay.
The ones that we were able to record. Thing is, my camera can only record up to 30 minutes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I can only record lightning talks.
Yeah. This is a common problem with cameras before, I think 2022, it was around there that they changed the law that meant if a camera is recording for more than 30 minutes, they were classified as a video camera.
Different tax.
Yeah, so it was a different tax. And so they changed that right after I bought my camera. So I have the same problem that you have on one of my cameras. I totally get it. That's cool. So Bread Cooperative, how can people find out about this, find out more about this? Where can they follow you and get involved if they want to?
Yeah, sure. So we have a website. Right now it's breadchain.xyz. We're still, because we're doing this rebrand, we were called Breadchain Cooperative. We've dropped our chain because the only thing we have to lose, comrades, is our chains. So we dropped the chain to make it less confusing because we're not a blockchain itself. Anyways, breadchain.xyz, or in case you're listening to this late enough, hopefully we've fixed the website that we're trying to move to more is bread.coop. So we just got verified for the .coop domain, which is great. So there you'll find links to everything there. We have a Discord server called Crypto Leftists. You go to cryptoleftists.xyz. It'll be just the Discord invites. I have my website, theblockchainsocialist.com, with all my blog and podcast type of content. And yeah, social media, you look it up. It's a really easy one to find. The Blockchain Socialist is very easy to find. And I think I'm the only one that pops up more or less.
Nice. I really like this, the approach that you're taking at looking at blockchain for like different uses. And you mentioned the democratization of capital, of money. And that was sort of the promise with blockchain originally with Bitcoin, is this is democratizing money, and that didn't work, like not at all. And now there's like blockchain has so many uses, and the majority of them are still payments and financial. So I really value what you're doing. I think that that's very, very cool.
Thank you.
What's the process? You said you just got verified for a co-op, Deanna, the top level domain. What's that process like?
You have to prove to the organization that owns that. It's like a co-op organization in the UK, I believe, who verify that you're actually a co-op. So they just they gatekeep a little bit of who can claim to be a co-op. You have to prove it. So we've proven that we run as a cooperative. Everyone who's a member is also votes on things related to the cooperative. And we show that we don't have a cooperative legal entity, but in our operating agreements, we function as a cooperative.
Okay, that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And this is the international consortium of whatever it is, numbers and names, the ICANN that does this, the top level domain.
It's not ICANN, it's some co-op organization in the UK. I'm not really sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I had no idea. That's nice. Thanks for explaining it to me. Very, very cool. So then funding the commons, you mentioned several events in the future. You are very much involved in in-person events. And in-person events are also important to the Bread Cooperative. Can you tell me more about like the value that in-person events has for the attendees? And like to me, it's really valuable, but I'd like to hear more about, like, you mentioned your motivations. So yeah, talk about that a bit.
I mean, I think, that's we're so often connecting with people all over the world. Like my team, like 6 people that are in 6 different countries, like Bread Cooperative, like around that same amount of people in a few countries. Like every project I've worked with in crypto and all of these different friends, all of those folks are dispersed all the time. And so having this opportunity to be together in person is super invaluable to keep building these connections, making new memories together, seeing where everyone is at, since projects are always changing. And then there's also the aspect, so, on one hand, there's all of these people that are kind of digital first in our relation to each other. And then it's also so valuable connecting with the local community in the physical space. So we were both gone for 6 months over the winter and organizing these events just as we came back, meeting with people in person and being like, oh yeah, so many of our friends and communities that we're part of and organizations we want to be closer to are all in person, and being deeply connected and embedded there figuring out how to give back to communities. It's super invaluable and just has a level of connection and resonance that is just not possible when things are just digital. But then, of course, digital is also a really important layer for keeping everyone connected between events and archiving processes, like people maybe seeing this discussion at some point, or
Yeah, absolutely. And the Bread Cooperative is also global. How does that? What's the sort of the structure of Bread Cooperative with the people who are involved? Like,
I mean, very online, so it's pretty international. But we have, I think, the most people we've ever had in one place physically right now in Berlin. That's been pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know how many countries we're spread out across. But legally, we're registered as a DAO LLC in the Marshall Islands. So it's just a super simple kind of setup that we were able to do, since so many things that we do is on chain already. And much of the like revenues that we get is crypto, and Marshall Islands just being a good place for donative type of kind of why we chose it. And then in the operating agreement for the creation of that legal entity, we describe it as a cooperative. Yeah, so it allows for then there's no bias towards anyone in some other country because no one lives in the Marshall Islands, of course. That's how it works.
right. And that definitely speaks to the importance of these in-person events. You mentioned that this is the first time that you have so many of you in one place for Berlin Blockchain Week here in Berlin. So that is incredibly valuable. Like we talk about decentralized networks, decentralized communities. We have this ability to form communities remotely, and you can work with someone for many years and never actually like see them in meet space, like in real 3D. My colleague over here behind the deck, so to speak, is Rabmar. We've been working together for 2.5 years, and this is the first time that we've been able to get together and work together. So it's really cool. And it's these events that brought us together. It's our activities here.
add to that, like the physical process of performing the labor of setting these things up is also so valuable for bonding, like physically raising up a tent with like your colleagues and being like, where are the cables, and like
Who has the
just
tape?
exactly. Yeah. These like very tactile experiences of building something together just make it especially tangible. And yeah, so meaningful to have like done this physical thing with our hands. So yeah, super cool.
Absolutely. And let's talk about Protocolberg a little bit, because this is the event we're at. It's the very end. In fact, I think the closing ceremony. Oh, it's starting right now. Okay. So
Well, thanks for talking so long.
No, we should wrap up. But I want to hear like real quick. Berlin Blockchain Week is this giant event that's going on for 2 weeks. There's like 300 different events going on. You had Funding the Commons, which was towards the beginning, and we still have a lot left to do. So what is the like most exciting thing besides your own event that you're looking forward to at Berlin Blockchain Week?
Well, until 3 hours ago, I would have said my talk at Protocolberg. Now that that's happened, I will have space to find out what else is happening. I don't even know. I know that our friends at Radical are having a party today. I guess we'll probably support that. And like, person who works there is DJ friend on the decks, I believe. And I think, now that we have shipped our event, he has a talk coming up. I completed my talk. He has a talk coming up at DAppCon. And other than that, just spending quality time with friends. We have like the best weather after, dealing with some rain. So I think just really enjoying, the specialness of getting to be in person.
It's fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna cut this short. We could continue to talk for a long time. Do you have anything to add as far as like Berlin Blockchain Week or any message? You said that she said you're speaking at DAppCon.
Yeah, I'm speaking at DEPCON about solidarity primitives.
Oh,
So this is like the conceptual framework that we also use for building applications at Bread Cooperative. So it's about how to create technology that facilitates relationships of solidarity rather than like financial speculation, using the kind of terminology of like financial primitives in the crypto space you may hear. I mean primitives, but borrowing primitives from tech. So yeah, I'll be talking about that at DABCon, and I'm sure it'll be recorded. So
When?
the 16th. So I need to make my slides. I need to finish them.
Always. It's the days before when the slides happen, right? Yeah, especially when you're so busy with other events and running a co-op. Cool. So we heard how to follow Josh and Bread Co-op and Blockchain Socialist, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And Beth, how can people find out about Funding the Commons, get involved there, make sure they catch future events?
Machine on Telegram and Twitter and everywhere. And I think Funding the Commons is at Funding Commons. And yeah, continuing to post some cool stuff. And yeah, really awesome chatting.
Likewise, it's been a real pleasure. And thanks again for organizing the amazing event. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your blockchain week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.